be used.
Yeah. Then the wife was giving out some Bibles, and they said they had a few. I'm like, well, if you need more, let me know. So.
Yeah, I refuse to get upset about Bibles. That's a good
I was reading
idea.
that book from a preacher, Josh,
Yeah?
and he would mention train their own preachers
Yeah.
in the church. Yeah.
Well, back then,
He was a Christian Bible. I don't, what was his name?
Elbow Martin.
Martin.
okay.
And he was mentioning Manning, but I don't know. And I guess he preached in Clarence in 51, I think he left Clarence.
I don't know, he preached the most at Plainview or whatever.
Plainview, which is up north.
Okay.
Plainview.
Is the book in good shape that you got?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a little book, it's not,
Is it something you'd be willing to let me borrow and read?
Yeah, I'll let you.
Because I'd really like to do that.
Okay.
It's just about an old preacher.
Yeah.
And the way his boyhead started out, you'd think, oh boy,
Right. Yeah.
because his dad didn't want him, and his dad was an alcoholic, and
well, his dad did want him, he's the one that stayed with his dad.
yeah, but then his
Then
dad took
he
him up
gave
and put him in somebody else and sold him to a farmer or whatever. I don't know what he did, but
Whoa.
then he finally came back home. But
He didn't see his, after his mother and dad separated, he didn't see his other brothers and sisters and his mom for 14 years.
Wow.
so
It was,
he was 81 years old when he wrote the book.
Wow.
Been preaching 60 years. He was talking about preaching without a college education and all that stuff.
he got all his degrees later though. He,
That's great.
and he was talking about where the church always trained.
It's kind of interesting
This
how
sounds like
it
Josh.
went for him, and
That's how they all used to do it.
then he talking about how the churches are getting so liberal.
Back then.
Yeah, it's all perspective, I guess.
Well, this was 1990 something.
Oh, well, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
94 when he wrote it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But he remembers back when the split, I guess with the disciples, I don't know,
Yep.
because he didn't
Thir-
mention,
33.
you know, I mean, he's lived all this history.
Right. Yeah.
And it's somebody like that, it would have been great to tap because it's hard to find a lot of information about it. You know, there's just anecdotes, really.
No.
The book kind of repeats itself in some areas, but
That's
it's
okay.
interesting for somebody
Hey, as old as he
like
was.
he said, he's 81 years old, and something kind of slipped your mind when you get back there.
It's okay.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah.
except when I'm trying to
Like-
remember somebody's name.
And like somebody that forgot their keys on Sunday.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
He says, he kind of mentioned that a couple of times about, said some things kind of dim from what he remembers.
Right.
Like I say, he's 81 years old when he wrote the book.
It's pretty good.
It's something you haven't thought about for a long time too. It's something you haven't thought about for a long time too. It's like me with that Harrison name, you know, up there. It's like, okay, now did I talk, I think I talked to him, you know, whatever.
And I think Mark's favorite word really is immediately.
I don't ever remember his name or anything.
It really is.
It's like 2 or 3 times a chapter, if not more often.
Yeah, we're going from studying Mark to Luke, so we'll see how the kids like the detail.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
Which is fine. Really, they enjoy reading the most. That's what the kids like to do. So Luke would be a good, it's longer stories, longer reading.
Well, and right now, this past Sunday, they started reading Looking Up, which was really good. They were, we start out the first week loud and slow.
Just right.
Then the next week, it's loud and slow and look up when you read.
Yeah.
And then we do that for a little while because that takes time to master.
Oh, yeah.
And
What
then
verse we on?
we started doing public prayer last week too. Mark chapter 1, and we are on verse 29.
No, that'd be great if I get some of them praying junior worship. Start setting the example before
Just,
youth group.
just point to him and say, "Hey, would you pray for us?"
Okay.
Just
I'll do that.
ask it in a question form, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and, yeah, so I had all 4 boys do public prayer this past week. That went really well. So, yeah, they're all getting good.
Great.
And they're really, the chemistry is there. You can tell they like each other. They're encouraging each other. They're learning from one another. Gabriel is being a really good sport working with the younger ones.
Great.
I don't think he's used to being the older kid.
I don't think so.
So it's kind of a good experience for him.
Uh oh, he might have the power and like it. Like, all right.
He gets up there and he just, he's so smooth. And so all the rest of them are like, wow, I want to do that. And they do. So,
Shows they can, but it doesn't work.
yeah.
I'll tell you, when I was reading that book, I come on to some things, I said, boy, I think that sounds like Josh.
Well, that's a compliment. Thank you. Well, but before the 50s, Bible colleges were few and far between.
That's one of the things he talked about too.
Yeah. Used to train preachers in church. That was the expectation. Yeah. I mean, I kind of have a forlorn hope one day that whoever it is that succeeds me, that instead of hiring a stranger, they hire one of them. And hopefully by then there's 30 or 40 of them to choose from. But I'm not convinced hiring a stranger is a New Testament idea. No, it's best that somebody who already knows and respects people and don't have to worry about a honeymoon or a falling out.
And like I say, when some of them I read, I said, oh, I've heard that before.
Well, I've got a lot of my ideas from older preacher books. Ed Soldale, I've read a lot of his stuff, and several others. So I really like reading them. Don Hunt.
You know anything about the Plainview Church or not? North of 10 Mile.
It's really good.
North of 10 Mile.
Northeast, isn't it? Macon.
And he talked about the Bethel Church, which is the one that
Yep.
closed there, and not over at Bethel.
Right.
The one over at 10 Mile.
Yeah, I preached at that church right before it
He
closed.
talked about it.
Yeah.
But then there's another one north of 10 Mile. 3 miles north and east, I think.
You know where the Historical Society has that Bethel Church now?
Yeah, that's the one he preached at.
Oh, okay, cool. I preached right
They
before.
preserved it.
When I went there, when I preached there was 4 people left.
Oh, wow.
Nice group, and they weren't really old. 60s, 70s.
He got talking about some of those things too, about the people disappearing and.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of the country churches, that's what happened, because the farms, instead of being little like they used to and having a family, and it was all got real big.
But it was kind of interesting to go through
Oh, yeah.
all those years.
I've read a lot of that stuff, and that's part of where I got some of my ideas. Because Don Hunt, before he started his school, he was training preachers in his church, and Ed Soldale and others. So, yeah.
In that same box of stuff that we bought to get that, there's this book about, or a little booklet about, I don't know if it says the best or worst. One of them's crossed out and the other one's added, a Christmas pageant. And it tells about these, I don't know if it's true or if it's just a story, but it's cute. About these people, they were, these little kids, everybody's scared of them in school and everything because they're meaner than anything and didn't, have very much good parenting and didn't, never been to Sunday school, didn't know anything about Jesus or Christmas story.
Right?
And anyhow, somehow they found out and came, and they ended up with all the parts in the Christmas. I think they threatened the other kids not to put their hand up, because they wanted that part. Anyway, it's just a funny, cute story.
Yep. Yep. Oh, yeah.
And
Sometime.
the other book you found was the Bathroom Reader.
Well, that wasn't in that box, but it was in one of the other boxes.
It's a big, long book and
Yeah.
all these.
Uncle John's Bathroom Readers. Yeah. There's
A lot of
several.
Oh, I
interesting,
never heard
funny
of them.
things.
Yeah, they're fun.
I'd never heard of them either until this one was in that box.
Yeah, before the age of
There's
cell
that story
phones.
in there about how the Wienermobile got started.
Yeah, they've got every trivia weird thing in there you could think of. Everything from humor to just strange history like that. Yeah.
Each
Yep.
story is like a. each
See,
little thing's
Alex,
about
before
it.
cell phones, when you went to the bathroom, you had to have something to read. So,
I was around where
Okay.
the stack of magazines were still
yep,
there.
stack of magazines.
And I always had a bunch of car magazines in there.
Yeah.
I even have a gun magazine in my
Then you got
bathroom.
phone in there,
The what?
phone,
The phone in the bathroom?
yeah, well,
Oh.
Some
we had
people do.
fertilizer and chemical plant.
I've seen hotels with phones in
And
the
boy, I said, in the spring and the fall, we should just take a recent picture of him and put on the refrigerator so the kids would remember what it looked like, because he'd be gone in the morning before they got up, and they'd be back to bed before he got home, so.
That's
how I
about the
was.
truth.
And I was in IT. Yeah. I saw my kids on Friday nights. That was the routine. I always came home and took them somewhere. Because then it was back to work. I
My
remember
kids,
that.
a lot of times only saw him on Saturday,
Yeah.
the same way, like,
Yep.
he would sleep when they left for school, or he was, I don't know, the way their schedules were, Saturdays.
I had a
sometimes
mini
really
apartment at
saw
my
each other.
shop. I had a shower, refrigerator, couch. I could sleep there, and I sometimes did. Just kept going. Yeah. The shower only had a 2-gallon water heater, so it was a fast
Quick one.
shower. You had like 2 minutes.
2 minutes again.
2 to 3 minutes at
Get
most.
wet, shut it off, wash up, rinse off.
Military shower.
I know, Kate's had a rude awakening marrying
Yeah.
Tyler because, he, now they're busy all the time, and in the spring he's busy because he's putting fertilizer and all that stuff,
That's
and
just the way it
it's
is.
been kind of hard for her at first,
Yep.
but she's getting used to it,
You just got to.
yeah.
In those situations, the breadwinner has to feel free to work.
Yeah.
Yes,
And when I married Kara, she had been a single mom for 4 years, so her life didn't change much. She just had a lot more money. That was it.
So it changed for the better.
Yeah, but she was a single mom 6.5 days a week, so Friday night she got time off because I always took the kids out. And the rest of the time I was gone. So, yeah, it worked out. I kind of miss those days to some degree, not because I was gone, but it was easy in a way. She was home, I was at work. It was so simple. I guess
Yeah.
the best way I know how to put it.
Kids were young.
Teenagers make it complex. Yeah.
yeah.
Little kids, no problem.
Yeah,
They just have a routine.
Well, Kara handles them really well. the
Yeah,
kids,
she's the
so-
children whisperer, and
Yeah,
and I'm
she is.
the teenage pounder. So, all right, well, let's get into this. Mark chapter 1, we're at verse 29. Can you believe that we've covered that much? And look, at Mark's favorite word is already with us. Do you remember what that is? Mark chapter 1.
oh gosh, what,
Immediately. Here it is again. So,
He's my guy.
Don't worry, we'll have it again before the chapter ends.
oh, several times it just keeps going. Yeah, this
where are we at now?
Mark chapter 1,
Oh, okay.
verse 29.
What did I've been reading, so,
And Virgil said that's his kind of guy. So we're reading a Virgil personality. Whereas if you go to John, that's more my personality. So, there's a gospel for everyone. But would somebody read verse 29 through 31?
Now, as soon as they had come out of the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick with a fever, and they told him about her at once. So he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her,
All right.
and she served them.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Shirley. So we had immediately at least twice there. That's Mark. Now, some really cool details about this story. One of the things we come to realize is that Peter is married. Because it's his mother-in-law that was sick with a fever.
right.
Now, remember, earlier in the same chapter, Peter and Andrew.
And now we're calling him Simon here,
Yes.
Simon Peter.
Yep. So he kind of wore both names. You've probably met people who use their middle name as their last name, that kind of thing. So he kind of has that dynamic going on. So Simon, his mother is ill, so that means he's married. Now remember, earlier in the same chapter, him and Andrew were fishermen, and Jesus called them away. So I want you to think about this from Peter's wife's perspective. So her husband just switched jobs. He went from being a fisherman that made money to a disciple that didn't quite make so much money. And now her mother is sick. Now, I don't know about every woman, but my wife doesn't like change. She likes routine. She likes to plan. She likes to know what's going to happen when. And so she's had 2 softballs thrown at her here, 2 hardballs thrown at her here. Her husband's job has changed. Now he's following this man she's just now getting to know named Jesus. And her own mother is sick. And most daughters are close with their mothers, so that was probably pretty distressful. And back then, if you're older and you get sick, what's your chance of dying?
Pretty,
Oh, a
pretty.
lot more than now.
Oh man. The average age that people died before sanitation in the 1850s was somewhere around the 50-55 range.
I know, you can, well, I do research, so you know that
Yeah.
they died young.
Most of them did. 50-55 was common before sanitation. And then after sanitation, it jumped like 15 years. So just the discovery of washing your hands and cleaning surfaces made a massive difference in longevity.
Cleaning doctor utensils.
In fact, you could say plumbers have saved more lives than doctors. Because sanitation is the most important medical advancement in all of history.
It is, you're right.
Nothing comes
I never
close.
thought of that, but
It's true. Yeah.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
Yeah. It is the most important advance in medical technology ever. Just simply cleaning.
Yeah, because they used to throw everything in the street.
Yep. Well, in some places in the world still do.
I know.
Where are the closest river?
Isn't that kind of strange? And one of the worst sanitation is one that runs second in the health thing. It's molded bread.
Moldy bread.
Yeah,
Moldy bread.
That's where penicillin came from.
Oh, my dad used to say, oh, go ahead and eat it, it's penicillin. I forgot about that.
Okay.
Don't know.
Here's a rabbit hole for you. When I was a little kid, I could not swallow pills to save my life. Couldn't probably till I was a teenager. Just struggled so much to swallow a pill. So I remember getting sick and having to be on an antibiotic, and they gave me liquid penicillin.
Ooh,
There is nothing more disgusting. To this day, I can have the memory of how awful that was.
Couldn't be
Pills
worse
weren't too
than
bad
castor
after
oil.
that.
Oh, yeah.
he never took
My
castor
mother
oil,
used to make
probably.
rice with orange juice. She'd stir it up in there and do it.
You had to take it, what, once a week
I
or
think
something?
it's once a week we got it.
You know what
Dr.
castor
Bum-
oil's
what was
for?
I remember it in the cartoons as a
Dr.
kid.
Yeah.
Bumstead's, what was it?
I don't know what good it did you either.
It was a medical fad.
Fish oil,
Yeah. Castor oil.
you know.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid watching cartoons of kids having to, and they would
I
do
remember what
anything
it
to
did
not
for me
have to
one
do
time
it.
in the hospital.
Wow.
I don't think mother ever made us take that I can remember.
That was a preventative. I don't know what it was preventing, but
A good night.
Didn't we only take it in the winter time? Because it was like, maybe you're supposed to do something in
Yeah,
the
I
sunshine.
Didn't know how good I had it.
kind
But the
of.
doctor got a pill.
That's like,
Could not
that's
swallow pills.
vitamin
And the reason
D
why is because
for
my tongue is
sunshine.
tied.
D3.
Oh, is it?
They didn't
Back
clip it
then,
when I was a
seemed like
baby.
that's what they called it.
okay.
That's what
So
they
I can't
thought
stick
they
my
were
tongue out very
doing.
far, and it
That's what-
blocks
I don't know.
some chewing and swallowing. So that's why.
At least that's
Chucky
affect
would
your
rather chew
tongue.
them up or
Chew up
eat it.
pills?
He has to eat them and put them in his mouth with his food.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
can't just take them by themselves.
Yeah, it's hard for me to swallow. It's easier than it used to be, but I still can't do like a horse pill. You know, those giant ones that some people can take. Can't do it. Just impossible. And my tongue is tied, that's why. Bottom of my tongue. Supposed to be clipped when I was a baby and it never was.
I'm surprised you're not tongue-tied.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
My mom
Because-
said it's because I talked so much I wore it out.
I think so.
You could still have that done.
My mother used to.
Do you?
My mother used to say that she would get so frustrated because I would never shut up as a child. Luke is the exact same way, which just exhausts me. So now I understand how annoying I was as a child. And my mom used to say, "Boy, Josh, you better get a job when you get paid up to talk." It worked out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so we got a couple of things going on here with Simon's mother-in-law and of course his wife. She's, I'm sure, very stressed about what's going on. But look at what happens. They spoke to him about her, of course, Jesus. And he came to her and raised her up, taking her by the hand, and the fever left her, and she waited on them. So, again, I was looking at this from Peter's wife's perspective. So, sometime in here, Peter told his wife, well, I'm not a fisherman anymore. I'm a fisher of men. I'm working for Jesus. And she's got to be like, what? What? What are you talking about?
Yeah, what happened to you?
Right, exactly. But
Fishers of men.
But notice how Jesus, what he does. He comes in and he heals her mother.
She's got a,
What a better way to win a woman's heart. I
Yeah.
thought, oh, that's good.
Even God knows.
That's good. And what's fun about the scriptures sometimes is that you got to read in between the lines. Like Mark just tells you the facts, but if you picture the story in your head, you can see his wife being very concerned and then realizing, okay, if he can save my mom, everything's going to be
He's
all
all
right.
right,
He's an all
yeah.
right guy. Yeah. And later on, Paul will mention Peter's wife because he uses Peter's wife to defend the other apostles having wives. He says, don't we have the right to take a wife with us? Yeah. So she was always there in the background. And I think a lot of mothers and women, that's where they are. My wife likes being in the background. She's a major reason I can do everything I do. She never gives me any difficulty. She's always there. And she makes what I do possible. And so I just saw her the entire time in the background reading this, And I just think it's so slick how Jesus is like, I know how to win her affection.
Mm-hmm.
I'll heal her mom. So, and notice that her mom got up and she waited on them.
How many of the other disciples had wives?
That's the only one we're told about.
That's the only one you know about.
But Paul says, don't we have the right to take a wife with us? It'd be hard to believe that he
That
would be
would
the
say
only one.
that Paul
Some
had a
did.
wife.
Well,
Probably, if he's
He-
asked.
if
I
he-
don't think so.
that has always been a point of contention.
No.
Because he says in 1 Corinthians 7, it's best to remain single as I am.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily refer to his past. It just means his present. Because he says, I prefer people remain as I am. Now, by that point, he was an older man. And in order to be a Pharisee, which he was originally, you didn't have to be married, but to be considered a good Pharisee, you had to be married. And he was considered the best. So, let's say you're a Pharisee and you're considered the best. And then you suddenly abandon being a Pharisee and become the proponent of the very religion you were persecuting. What do you think happened?
Total change overnight.
Well, no, I mean, what do you think happened to his wife?
Oh.
She might have left.
I think so. That seems the most logical conclusion to me.
She died.
No,
You
Left
say?
him.
left him.
Left him.
Because remember, about 40 years old or
Oh,
so,
okay, she left him
Saul
because he,
becomes Paul, leaves the Pharisaical life, becomes an apostle. Well,
she liked that.
she probably enjoyed the prestige and the wealth and all that
She
came
was
with.
one of those.
Well, I mean, when you're a high political official, you tend to marry into that world.
Right.
So I have a feeling that's what happened. It's hard to prove. Wouldn't try to prove it. It's not dogma, okay? But I have a feeling that's what happened. And that would kind of explain to me why he never remarried or ever talked about it in his present sense. Because imagine how much that hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe that formed his opinion why they should be single too.
Yeah. He burned pretty bad. Now, let me put another perspective on it. Now, once Paul became an apostle and he was loved by the church and he loved them, do you think there were women after him? Sure. Sure. Yeah. So, but he also said that if he had a wife and kids, that they would be in danger being married to him because he was always in danger, right?
Right.
So it was a personal choice he made not to go there. But he also defended the apostles who decided to have wives and kids. So the Catholic Church is just wrong when it says that their priests can't marry. I mean, that they have all kinds of strange defenses about that. And then they wonder why their priests start doing bad things to kids.
Yeah.
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 No, it's not right.
Yeah, and even the nuns,
Right, yeah.
Right, having babies.
No, Jesus is pretty clear. The vast majority of people are meant to be with someone.
Well, that's what God made.
Yeah.
To,
Now, he does say there's a group called eunuchs. They're a small group who he designed to be single for life. But that's very few people. And we've all met a handful who that's really who they are. You know, I think Maury is one of those. You know, he's never been married, right?
no, not that I know.
No, but he's content and he loves the Lord and he serves him in his own way. And hey, that's great. You know? So, to each their own.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that's not.
Yeah. All right, well, now we're on to the next story. Notice how Mark does it.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately,
Now, think about this. Now, actually, in this story, he actually waits till evening comes. So it's for once,
Wow.
it's not immediately.
There's
We're
a
gonna
little
take
bit of a
break,
breather.
Virgil, okay? Is that all right? Okay.
We were gonna go to evening.
when
Yeah.
evening came.
Yeah.
Still the same day.
Yeah.
Now, another thought for you before we move on. Notice, once again, we have another story and it's only 3 verses. But notice how much was in that 3 verses. There's a lot going on. Mark says a lot in a very few words. I've always admired people who don't have to.
Use a lot of words.
Yeah.
Drag it on.
And the reason why is because I'm not that guy. I'm impressed by people who can do that. You know, I'm sure Virgil can give you a bread recipe in just a couple of paragraphs. I would write a book about it, you know. All right. So let's start reading in verse 32. Now, this story is a little longer, but we're going to go to verse, well, I guess 34. And so it's still some 3 verses. Okay. 32 to
Right.
34. Anybody?
And he came to her,
32.
32. When evening came after the sun had set, they began bringing to him all who were ill and those who were demon-possessed. And the whole city had gathered at the door. And he healed many who were ill with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he was not permitting the demons to speak because they knew who he was.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So, Virgil brought up a point. It's the same day. So, what does Jesus begin the day doing? Healing
Healing.
Simon's mother-in-law. And then when evening has come, then people get the word that Jesus just did what?
Kicking demons' butts.
Well, and look at verse 32 though. They brought him what? Those who were
Sick
Sick.
and had
Sick.
a demon possessed.
so, but there's 2 different things,
Yeah.
right?
All who were ill.
All who were ill and those who were demon possessed. So Jesus heals one person, and now everybody's coming to
It's
him.
kind of like nowadays, you know, one person hears something or one group and it,
Just explodes. So notice that we're still in chapter 1, but a lot's happened in the book of Mark already. And Jesus starts out with, there's John the Baptist, and then Jesus gets baptized, and then we have these stories where he picks up his new disciples, he does cast out a demon, he preaches, and now he's beginning his healing ministry. Now this ministry is something that continued through the apostles in the early church. They could also heal.
right.
Yeah.
But then man's ability to do that ceased. Can God still heal?
Yes, if
Yes.
he wants to.
Yes.
Yes.
But man no longer has the ability to do it on demand. And so this is a unique time in Scripture and in history where there is this healing property that men can possess. And it's extraordinarily popular. Can you name something else Jesus did that was very popular?
Fed people.
Fed people. He would feed people and he would heal them. It's like
Water,
food
wine.
stamps and Medicare. I mean, just, I tell you, it's really something else. Now, think of this from Jesus' perspective. That's what I was trying to do when I was studying this. So, Jesus is now healing people. He's going to feed people. He's getting their attention. You got to do something to get people to pay attention, And so he's done that. And he's not only healing those who are sick, he is healing those who were demon possessed. And then look at verse 33. And who was at his door?
Whole city.
Whole city. Woo!
Hope he
Word
wasn't
spread
in.
fast.
What's that?
Word spread fast.
Oh, man. And at that time, especially among the poor and the peasants, how many sick people were there?
A lot.
Oh, sure was.
Oh,
Oh, my
man.
goodness.
Could you imagine a whole community suddenly getting well? what would happen?
Well, it'd be a shocker.
Well, it would, but
wonderful.
it would revive everything. I mean,
Yeah,
it would revive families, it would revive the economy. I mean, it would have an effect like nothing else.
Well, that's true.
News would spread quick.
Right. And it's all due to this new person in town named Jesus. You know, and you can imagine Simon's mother-in-law. Now, she sounds like a background person to me, right? She waits on people, she supports them, you know, she's a server. But can you imagine how many people came and talked to her?
Oh, I could,
Oh,
yes. She
Now, do you think
got
they would've
very
came-
popular.
Yes. Can you imagine if she was only kind of sick and got better, do you think there'd been that big of a deal?
No.
No, we're talking about a pretty bad sickness here. Like everybody in town probably thought, oh, Simon's mother-in-law's gone. She's going to die. And then she's healed, and she probably just doesn't even think about it. Just tells somebody who did it. And then just, boom. So it also goes to show you how we can pull attention one way or the other.
Can you imagine how word get around like that without telephones?
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
words got around pretty good back then.
Imagine
Back
with
on-
telephone.
Must have.
They had
Telephone.
there was actually a job, and you always hear the job herald as in like the king's herald, but there were just heralds who literal job, and to this day you've,
Go out and shout what.
yep, that was their job. Something happened, they went all around town and just told everybody. Yeah, that was their job.
That
They-
was their newspaper.
They were, it was, because most people weren't literate, and weren't for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So the only way you heard was if somebody came and told you. So somebody was paid to literally go around town and just tell the news all day long.
I like the sound of that job.
You and I would be pretty good at it.
Even when I was young, you know, you didn't hear about all these things all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what was happening.
Look what's happening right now to us because we don't have the newspaper in Macon anymore, the daily newspaper.
Right.
People can die and be buried, and if it's not on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
You don't, or somebody
Don't
tells
know.
you,
Yeah,
word of mouth.
Yeah, it's really,
yeah.
it's disjointing. Also because the newspaper used to be something that was kind of universally available, and Facebook isn't. If you don't have internet, computer, phone, how do you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. It's
Yeah.
not easy.
I have another question.
Okay.
Demon possessed.
Mm-hmm.
You hear about more people being demon possessed back in Bible time.
Yes.
What happened that
They don't.
we don't hear that now,
Well, let me give you.
or even 50,
I think you
100
and I
years
talked-
ago about.
We talked about it last week, I think.
Okay, so let me give you a quick 30-second review. How many times do you hear about demon possession in the Old Testament? Very little. It's like twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, total. Now, the Old Testament covers 4,000 years of history, and it virtually doesn't happen. Then suddenly you land in the Gospels, and it's like every other page.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
it's
devil's really
well.
working.
So think about that, right? Okay, so Satan has been trying to kill off the lineage of Christ until he's born, and then when he's born, he works through Herod to try to kill all the little boys. I mean, Satan is just desperate to kill off Jesus. Well, Jesus comes of age, and he gets crowds mad and tries to throw him off a cliff and tries to stone him and all this. Well, Satan knows that if Jesus fulfills the mission that God has sent him on, he's done for. And so now Satan is literally unleashing every tool in the toolbox, everything he can think of. And so every one of his fallen angels and demons are doing all they can. And so we kind of have this last great barrage of evil inflicted upon the world. And if you know anything about the Roman world, it was very evil. And so that's what basically happens here. In fact, you can see that because not only does Satan use the demons to come after Jesus, he himself tries to tempt Jesus. Remember that?
Yeah.
In the wilderness. I mean, he's never been so upfront before. And now look at today's culture. Instead of demon possession, now he's got people embracing things like Satanism and embracing the evils that the Bible talks about. And it may not be demon possession in like the way it is here, but it's possession of sin. It's just total control that sin has over so many people's lives. So Satan works at different ways at different times. Now what's interesting is you get to about the middle of the book of Acts and demon possession just disappears. So it seems to me that Satan realizes it didn't work against Jesus. It's not working against the church. Time for a different battle plan. And he does. Almost immediately after demon possession ceases, he starts corrupting the doctrine in the church and introducing sin into the church. Because it turns out people are more interested in adultery and things of that nature than they are demonic power. And that has been a pretty effective strategy on his part for a long time.
For a long time.
So that's the history of demon possession. It seems to be a last hurrah of Satan to try to take down Jesus. And notice too, it kind of escalates. We start out with like 1 or 2 demons in a person, but we get to Mark chapter 5 and there's a whole legion of demons in a person.
Right.
You
And
can actually see them coming out.
yeah. In fact, there's so many demons in the demoniac of the Gerasenes that they call themselves legion. Like it's a collection of demons. Like it's almost like Satan's like, I'm going to put everything I can into one person to try to take on Jesus. And he couldn't do it.
Is that why, I don't know what country calls their armies legions? Is there-
Romans.
Romans,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, we got the
That means
American
many.
Legion
Yeah,
here.
because I know they.
It just means many.
Yeah, a
Many.
group of,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a neutral word.
Wasn't that what the Catholic Church was trying to do with the Exodus?
The exorcisms.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually to this day still have a rite of exorcism. Yeah. They use it very rarely, mostly in third world countries. Yeah. But the reason why you don't hear about it anymore, at least I'm convinced, is that Satan does it for a short period of time. It doesn't work, so he moves on. I mean, he's not good, of course, but he's not stupid. Satan is always going to try to use the thing that works the best for his purposes. And demon possession seems to be a failed experiment, I guess is the best way to put it. I think he tried to rule the people through fear, and people don't respond to fear as much as they do temptation. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the best I've got there. Good question. All right. So the whole city had gathered at the door. Now, if Jesus was just a man, and let's say because there's people who argue that, right? That he wasn't really the Son of God, that he was just a nice guy or just a good teacher, that he was just ahead of his time when it came to herbal medicine or something like that. If Jesus was just a man, and the whole city showed up at his door, if you're just a man and suddenly you become super popular, what's the temptation?
Take full advantage.
Yeah. Start using it to make money and have fame and book deals, maybe big buildings named after you. What does that sound like today?
I could name a man, but I won't.
Televangelist. That's what it sounded like to me. So if Jesus was just a man, I think he would have fallen into the same temptation they all do. But he had a much bigger mission in mind.
Yeah.
He wasn't interested in fame or money. He had all the riches and all the glory in heaven. That's not what he was here for.
Have you heard this saying Jesus said, be either a liar, lunatic, or Lord?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Liar, lunatic, or Lord.
Yep.
Yep. If you take the claim that Jesus made that he was God, either he knew it but was lying, okay, which would make him a liar, or he didn't know it, he really thought he was God, and then he's a lunatic. I mean, if I told you I was God, you'd think I was crazy, right?
Yeah.
Or he really was God, and he said it, which would make him Lord. So Lord, liar, lunatic. And the whole point of that is you have to either call Jesus Lord, or you've got to call him a liar or a loonball. So which is he?
He's Lord.
Oh.
Yeah, he can't just be a nice guy, is my point. He's got to be one of the... Once you make the claim that you're God, you're either a Lord, a liar, or a lunatic. So that's the logical apologetic. Yep. All right, so the whole city's got his door, and then, verse 34, he heals many with various diseases, casts out many demons. He was not permitting the demons to speak. Now, do you remember why that is? You go back to verse 24.
Because they yell out that they know who he is.
Uh-huh, and he's not ready for that yet.
Yeah, you are the Holy One of God.
Mm-hmm. And the people were conjecturing, guessing, because remember they said, are you Elijah? Are you the coming Messiah? Who are you? And he would wait a little while to reveal that. Now, it's strategic, I think. If you have something really audacious to say, you want everybody on your side before you say it. You want people loving you before you say it. You know, if
What's
there's
that word mean?
what, audacious? Something that sounds crazy. Like saying, I'm God.
Okay.
Like imagine Jesus shows up and just starts telling people, yep, I'm God. But doesn't do anything. Doesn't heal anybody, doesn't cast out any demons, doesn't
Right, right.
feed anybody.
Right.
People are going to be like, okay,
sure you
go
are.
get the wagon for this guy. Right?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So Jesus here, he's building up to it. He's got to there's got to be so much proof that whatever he says or does, it's going to be undeniably true. There's an old phrase in the study of logic, and I'm not trying to bore you when I say this, but if you've removed all possible options, what remains is both impossible and true.
Say that again.
If you've removed all possible options, what remains is both impossible and true. So, for example, saying Jesus is God, you're eliminating all the other possibilities. Is he a liar? No. Is he a lunatic? No.
He's gone.
He's God. That sounds impossible, but it's true. See what I mean? So that's an old law of logic. There's anybody here familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, the children's stories? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a point in time where Lucy has gone into the closet and she went into Narnia and came back, but nobody else has been to Narnia. So she starts telling everybody about Narnia. Well, does anybody believe her?
No.
No. And so, but the professor is not so skeptical. But Lucy's older sister challenges the professor and says, that's insane. You can't go into a closet and then discover a whole new world. And so he confronts her and says, does Lucy typically lie? No. Do you think she's crazy? Well, no. Well, it sounds like to me she's telling the truth. And then they find out she was.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's a brilliant part of the book.
Who is it?
C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia.
I don't think that part was in the movies, so.
It is
Have
actually.
you read
Is it?
that?
Yep.
No.
Okay.
I have neither.
I'll have to rewatch it.
Yep.
But I know of
But
it.
he was
Did
making
ya?
that same argument.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what sounds impossible might actually be true. If you removed all possible options, what remains is both impossible and true.
See where my brain goes on stuff like that is to disprove it. So I'm gonna think on that a little bit longer.
If you want to argue against C.S. Lewis, I'll let you do it. I'm out. I'm out.
He's not Paul. I can make those arguments.
You know, C.S. Lewis one time wrote, and later on in his life, his later works are even better than his earlier works, especially when his wife passes away and he writes about his grief. But he said, I've never won an argument except for when a nap takes me. And what he meant by that is that sometimes he'll be in debate with somebody either by letter or in person, but because he was really old at the time, he would just sometimes fall asleep. And then later on he would kind of quip and say, I get bored with people being wrong. So,
That's great.
he was a funny guy. Yeah.
So I'm gonna start falling asleep on you, Josh.
Yeah.
It's already been.
No, it's okay. Every week in church, somebody is, so it's all good. I don't take any offense to it.
I'm so glad.
I would rather people be in church and asleep than at home and awake. It's
Yep.
fine with me. Yep.
Don't feel guilty about it.
In fact, if people are late, I say just be here for communion. You know, that's the important part. All right. So he's doing this, and notice what he does in verse 35. Does somebody just want to read verse 35 for me?
In the early morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went away to a secluded place, and was praying there.
Okay, stop there. Now, has Jesus had a day?
Yeah.
I mean, now he was God, so he knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But he started out the day just visiting Simon, his mother-in-law, his wife, you know. And then what did it turn into by the end of the day? This explosion. I mean, just the whole city. Well, do you think you need a break after that?
I'd say.
Yeah, even God takes breaks. In fact, what's the seventh day of creation?
The peace.
Rest.
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 It's a good example.
He didn't get much sleep in there because
No.
the sun was down whenever all these people came.
But sometimes do you need sleep or sometimes do you need rest? Like, it took me a long time to understand the difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be conscious but not doing a lot. It's okay. And that's what Jesus does here, because what does he do? He arose, he went to a lonely place, and he was praying there. Now that's a good sign to you that prayer should be restful. Prayer should be a time of peace. It should bring, rest to your soul. I've always tried to encourage the youth and my own children to make sure your Bible study time and your prayer time is a time of enjoyment and peace. Don't make it a duty. Make it a joy. And in fact, Jonathan, he's been reading through the New Testament on his own, and I said, sit on the couch, have a drink next to you, get comfortable, enjoy it. Associate good feelings with reading the Bible. That's really a healthy thing to do. If you beat it into yourself, you won't do it.
Yeah.
It's got to be something you present to yourself as a good thing to do. And he's got through almost all the New Testament now. And he's got some questions.
Sure.
I can imagine.
When he was going through Romans, I was like, son, you're going to have to ask somebody else. About chapters 2 through 10, I know very little about. That is some tough stuff. 2 through 11, really. All right. Well, we're going to stop there because it's 2 o'clock.
What's that?
Yeah. But a lot happened in 7 verses, didn't it? Yeah. And again, if you read it, and what I was taught to do as a young preacher is visualize everything you're reading. Play out the drama in your head. I mean, there's a lot going on here. And then, you can see characters like Peter's wife working in the background that you wouldn't see if you just read the text. You see what I mean? So, it's very important to
That's
do
not what
that.
I'm doing, and I need to do that.
It's very useful.
I used to read all the time, and I'd always visualize.
Yeah, always visual, and take it slow so you can do that. I don't rush my Bible reading at all, which is probably why it takes me 2 years to get through Job.
Well, that's
But
why we get so much out of this group,
try to, yeah.
is that we're not rushed through it.
No.
We talk about it, so we visualize it as well as discuss.
In fact, one thing I keep learning as I age is anything I do in a hurry, I do wrong. There's a right pace to do everything. Some things you can do faster than others, but anything I just absolutely get, like I'm building a tool cabinet on the front side of my lawn, so if you want to see a really bad tool cabinet, drive by my house. And I've been building it outside. And yet last night I was getting impatient, I wanted to finish a part, and I got ahead of myself and I started making mistakes.
Always happens.
Always do.
And when you're cutting into a $40 piece of plywood,
Oh, no.
because plywood's really expensive right now. And I was like, okay, you know why you're making mistakes? Because you're hurrying. Stop it.
Stop and
Stop it.
start again later.
A friend told me a long time ago, an older friend, he said, ruthlessly remove haste from your life. Don't allow other people to get you in a
Haste
hurry.
makes waste.
It does.
How does that go? The hurried you go,
Behind her I get.
the behind her I get.
And I think it's a lot of peer pressure, right? Because you know these people that like shame other people if they're not working like they are. And it's like, that doesn't work. Fine. You want to think I'm lazy because I only work 12 hours a day at a certain pace? Fine. Think it all you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. All I do is end up making mistakes to make somebody else happier. Well, that's not good.
No.
Not when you're ruining a $40 piece of plywood. So what I ended up doing was just putting glue in it and trying to put it back together because I didn't want to waste it. So it's not very pretty. But
The tool cabinet for your tools.
yeah, for Jonathan, he's added so much in the past year that I've got to get organized. It's just a disaster zone in the garage. Can't even walk through there.
You cleaned it up not long ago. I thought, or organized it, then the tools happened.
But then he keeps getting these weekend jobs painting and everything, and oh my goodness, and then he does a Harbor Freight run or something. I'm like, where am I going to put these 30 things? Well, I don't know. They don't fit in my room. Okay. So I'm trying.
Pull the take it to mom's card.
It's my problem.
Oh, I gotta tell you something.
Okay.
Talking to Abby Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know how it came about, but I said, well, honey, if I was, it's about how I said, if I'm not your real grandmother. She said, it was just like, now, silent. She said, Grandma, You're not my real grandma?
Oh my,
I'm sorry.
you thought she knew that?
I did, I thought she knew.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that probably broke her heart, didn't it?
I'm afraid so.
I was about her age when I found out that my grandmother wasn't my actual grandmother. My real grandmother died 30 days after my mom was born from polio. And when I found that out, I felt betrayed for a little while. But then you grow up a little bit and you realize, you know, things happen, and I'm just grateful for people that love me. And I'll still call her grandma, and I still do.
That's what
sure.
I told her, I said,
That's the only one you do.
I'll always love you like a grandma does.
Yes.
Always.
She'll remember that. She's a smart little girl.
Yeah.
And it's probably best you get that out of the way.
Yeah, well, that's out.
Then if she was 20 and then found out.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
these people have been deceiving me.
I don't know how I thought she would have known, other than it maybe Missy would have said, well, she's not your grandma, you know.
You know, somebody might
Yeah.
have said
Well, her
that to
mother,
her,
I
you
would have
never
thought, might
know.
have
Well, you know,
said that, but
I'm not Lane and Harley's real dad, but I'm their only dad. The other guy's never been around,
yeah.
you know. And I don't have to be related to you to love you like a dad.
No, you don't have to be related to kids to
No.
No.
love them.
No.
Love is thicker than blood.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
Well, thanks for sharing, Shirley. That's tough.
Yeah, it was hard. I didn't.
You might give her a couple of weeks.
Oh.
I think she'll process it.
Yeah.
She knows how much you love her.
Yeah, she does.
She does.
She knows.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have done all those things if she had done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember it took me a couple of weeks to get over it. But when you're a little kid, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, it just takes a little bit.
Yeah.
But she's darn smart. All
I
right.
miss my hugs.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
I do too.
Yeah, everybody does. I have a feeling she'll be back around at some point. All right, well, let's wave bye to everybody.
Bye bye.
See you later. Okay.